Now, it's looking like Game Week 6 is going to be a really popular time for FPL managers to play their first wildcards. And if you're one of those managers, I've got a draft for you. So before we get into the team itself, I've got some projections, some data, some statistics to take you through before we actually build the team. Now, I wanted to look at the Elevenify projection models. Elevenify is a really good source of fantasy football related projections, basically. And what we've got here is over the next 5 game weeks, the top teams for projected clean sheet odds and projected goals. And for me, you know, looking at these teams, you're kind of looking clean sheet odds wise, you're looking at teams to target defenders from, and projected goals wise, you're looking at teams to target midfielders and forwards from, right? Looking at the clean sheet odds, 3 teams sort of in and around the top. We've got Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Everton and Brentford up there as well, because both of those teams have a really decent fixture run as well. Man City, their clean sheet odds always look good, right? But they just ship so many odd goals. And it's happened for a couple of seasons now. It's not just like a short sort of sample size where it's been a few games where their expected goals conceded has been really low, but they've still shipped goals. This has kind of happened for the last couple of seasons. So, and also, there's a lot of rotation risk around these Man City defenders right now. For me, I probably avoid. I'm not saying that they're bad, but I haven't got a Man City defender in my wildcard draft. I'll just say that. Arsenal, on the other hand, look really strong. Matchday 6, game week 6 and 7, they've got good clean sheet odds. 8, 9, 10, also good. For 6 and 7, their clean sheet odds are 57 and 58%, right? It's quite rare that you see a team with above 50% clean sheet odds, right? It's extremely rare that you see it 2 game weeks in a row. And that basically means the projection backs them to be more likely than not to keep a clean sheet for 6 and 7. So just something to bear in mind. Liverpool have played 5 games in the Premier League and kept 4 clean sheets. Everton and Brentford have got really good fixture runs up until game week 5. Obviously, some games have been played. By the time you're actually watching this video, it will have concluded. I'm recording this just in the middle of Sunday during game week 5 itself. But at the end of game week 4, at least, Nottingham Forest were the 3rd best team in the league for expected goals conceded. So those kind of 5-6 teams are where I'd be looking to pick my defenders from. From a projected goals perspective, it's a relatively similar story. Man City, Liverpool and Arsenal are the top 3. You've got Spurs in there as well. Villa, Chelsea, Man United, Brentford. Those are kind of the top teams for projected goals. And, you know, that would kind of give you, I hope, an idea of players I'd be looking to target. All right, so we spoke about Arsenal in terms of projected goals and clean sheets earlier, and I just wanted to focus on them specifically for the next 5 game weeks, right? Yes, in 9 and 10, they've got Liverpool and Newcastle. I'd suggest that Liverpool fixture in particular is obviously really tough. But Leicester, Southampton and Bournemouth in their next 3 just look like clear-cut, absolute bankers of good fixtures. 57 and 58% clean sheet odds in matchday 6 and 7. 2.82, 2.9 projected goals in matchday 6 or 7. So that's saying Arsenal are basically expected to win 3-0 in all of those games. So, you know, if that's the projection, it suggests that Arsenal players are definitely on the menu. Another player that I really like the look of, and we spoke about Brentford when going through those projected clean sheets, etc. I really like the thought of going for Flecken. I'm kind of a bit bullish on him probably being the best goalkeeper in the game right now. Of course, alongside David Raya, we just spoke about Arsenal's likelihood to keep clean sheets, etc. as well. But I think, in my opinion, the best goalkeepers in FPL, right, are ones that keep kind of an average amount of clean sheets, but they make saves every game. And Flecken, if you round it up, obviously 5.6 rounded up is 6. That's 2 saves bonus points per game, the maximum you can get in FPL. And he is averaging that every game. He's leading the league in terms of saves. I'll put lead in the lead there in terms of saves. Leading the league in terms of saves. And the fixtures that Brentford have coming up are just amazing. West Ham at home, Wolves at home, Man United away, Ipswich at home, Fulham at home, Bournemouth, Everton, Leicester. Maybe apart from that Man United game where, of course, there's a likelihood of getting saves bonus in, right? Flecken, I think, has a reasonable chance of keeping a clean sheet in all of those games and making a fair few saves. So, where goalkeepers come from, we're going to start looking at the defence of the wildcard draft now. Flecken is kind of the one to go for in my mind. Alongside, of course, David Raya, I'd say those are the 2 to pick. But my personal favourite, save yourself $1 million and go for Flecken. Now, I picked up the Arsenal defence earlier, but I think Trent and Robertson, Trent in particular, he's gone up to 7.1 million now. They're just looking absolutely great. And Trent in particular, so both players, right, are playing for the same defence. So they've kept 4 clean sheets from 5 starts of Liverpool so far. I think Slotter's really got them playing well defensively, particularly with that midfield setup he's got with Gravenberch as the holding guy. He's got them looking really solid. The underlying numbers that Trent is putting up so far this season are pretty crazy. 0.49 expected returns per 90, right? I just want to put that into context. Ollie Watkins, who got 19 goals and 18 assists last season, right? I think he outscored Erling Haaland last season, if I'm not mistaken. Ollie Watkins got those goals and assists from I think it was 0.53 or 0.58 expected returns per 90, right? And over the first 5 games of the season, Trent has put up 0.49. So he is playing similar levels in terms of like goal assist threat, 0.49 expected returns per 90 minutes that Ollie Watkins did last season. And he's a defender and he's 7.1 million, right? And he is, I would say Robertson is in this category as well, but Trent in particular, because he is, in my mind, just a little step above Robertson. He is a player that can get returns through 3 different means, right, consistently. You can pretty much guarantee he's going to score some goals this season. I would say 3 to 5. Free kicks, long shots, etc. We all know he's got that in his locker. Assists, I mean, I can pretty much guarantee he will get double-digit assists this season, and the same with clean sheets, right? So he is a player that you can guarantee will get returns through 3 different means. And the level of attacking threat he's putting up at the moment is a similar level in terms of underlying data to what Watkins did last season. So I just wanted to tell you about Trent, and we all know he's a good asset, right? But I just wanted to show just how good of an asset he is, and kind of a guess that he's probably going to be in the draft. All right, so the 4 starting defenders I would go for in this wildcard draft for game week 6 is Flecken. Just spoke about him. I think he is probably the best goalkeeper in the game, right? We spoke about him in terms of saves and good clean sheets potential. Gabriel, we all know what I said about Arsenal, and the same with Trent. I think you just have to have those 3 guys in your wildcard draft, with the exception maybe, we'll get to the end of the team. If you have a bit more cash in the bank than what this team, costs, potentially you could upgrade Flecken to Raya if you really wanted to. That could be a move you make, but like I said, I'm trying to build this draft to cater for everyone. So this team that I'm building right now should be affordable for absolutely everyone that watches this video, regardless of kind of the budgetary position you're currently in with your team. I wanted to make it accessible for everyone. So if you're in a fortunate position where you have a bit more cash in the bank, you might be able to upgrade some of these players a little bit. And then the 3rd defender, I really like Alex Moreno from Nottingham Forest. Currently sitting at 4.4 million. I do expect that price to go up. We saw from his time at Villa, he's a really good attacking fullback. And he's now playing for Nuno at Nottingham Forest, right? So I would say he's probably right now the best Nottingham Forest defensive option with the attacking threat that he poses. And we saw when we looked at the clean sheet odds, Nottingham Forest up until game week 5 were the best team, well, 3rd best team, not the best, the 3rd best team in the league for expected goals conceded. Fulham, Chelsea, Crystal Palace. The Chelsea one you might want to rotate him for. But those 2 fixtures either side, I think, are kind of bankers for him to start. And yeah, I really like Alex Moreno as an option. I think he's going to be a differential. Not many people have him. He's cheaper than, likes of Rico Lewis, etc., who isn't even necessarily nailed. I think Moreno's going to pretty much play every game with the way he started things for Forest. Yeah, I really like him as an option. Now, before we get into the midfield of this draft, there are a couple of players that I just really wanted to highlight. First of all, Bukayo Saka. So he hasn't played the Man City game at the time that I'm recording this video, so we've got his stats at 4 starts so far. So I'm recording this a little bit early because I'm going to go live directly after game week 5 finishes. So yeah, I thought I'd record this video a bit ahead of time. 10 million for Saka at the moment. I do imagine with the amount of people on their wildcards, his price is probably going to go up, right? But we all know what you get with Saka. He's Arsenal's talisman, best player and penalty taker, right? He's absolutely nailed on to start on the right and plays 90 minutes pretty much every game. And everything I've just said there is all, in my mind, all of the boxes ticked for a good FPL asset, right? You want a guy that lines up and starts every game. You want a player that takes penalties, and you want a player that's on the pitch for 90 minutes. All of those things combined make for a really good FPL asset. And he is just improving season on season, right? We all know just how good of a player he is, and he's getting better season on season. So I put his stats in from last season. I just wanted to show them as an example that I think, based on his record so far, that he's going to improve on those stats. So I think come towards the end of the season, he'll be around 20 goals, 15 assists, something like that, I would imagine, barring any injuries, of course. And we spoke about Arsenal and their upcoming fixtures, right? For game week 5 and 6, they've got Leicester and Southampton. And, well, when you look at the FPL review expected points, okay, a lot of people, probably everyone watching this video has a rough idea or knows about FPL review. And there are some people in the analytics community of FPL that see almost FPL review as a gospel because the algorithm of projections, etc., is just so good. And I don't quite sit on that side of the fence where I just look at FPL review as gospel. I obviously really appreciate what it brings and how useful it is. But I just wanted to point out that it currently has Saka as the top projected points player for game week 6. And it's not even close. He's 1 expected point more than Palmer and over 1 expected point more than Haaland. So just bear that in mind when thinking about Saka. And I think one of the most powerful things you can do in FPL is pick the best captain week on week. And I would suggest that most weeks, the best captain is Erling Haaland. We've probably gone through, I would suggest game week 5 and game week 1 were 2 weeks where Salah was arguably a better captain than Haaland. And game week 6 is a new opportunity to captain someone different in Saka over Haaland potentially. So I just think owning the best captain in FPL is a good way to go about things. And given that he's the top projected points player for game week 6, according to FPL review, having Saka as the best captain is a good idea. He's already gone up again to 7.2 million, but I think Brian Mbeumo is looking really good this season. I've just noticed it's got 161 XG in there, meant to, of course, be 1.61. And just speaking about what I did with Saka there, you know, a player that starts every game, is on the pitch for 90 minutes, takes penalties, and I don't think Saka necessarily takes all the free kicks for Arsenal, but Mbeumo takes all the free kicks for Brentford. He's on absolutely all set pieces, right? He just ticks the boxes of everything you want in an FPL asset. And we saw the Brentford fixtures when we looked at Flecken, right? I would say from an attacking perspective, their next 7 or 8 fixtures, I would back Brentford to be able to score in every single one of those games. And I think in Mbeumo, I mean, he's probably the best midfielder under 8 million right now, right? I just think he's absolutely amazing, to be honest. So yeah, he ticks all the boxes of a good FPL asset. He's probably the best midfielder priced under 8 million, sorry. He's got 4 goals in 5 games so far. He's obviously a really good option. So then, in my midfield, you will notice that there is no Mo Salah. And I think the only reason at this point that you would pick Mo Salah in an FPL team, I'm not going to suggest that he's a bad option at all. But I think if you're on your wildcard, the only reason you would pick Salah is because you believe he's the best captain on a particular week. Otherwise, right now, I would suggest that Haaland is kind of a perma-captain, given, of course, Game Week 6 is an opportunity to give it to Saka. So yeah, I think you can do without Mo Salah at the moment. And if you do, this is the kind of midfield you can pick. So we've got Saka and Palmer in here. I don't really need to do a case on Cole Palmer. You'll know how good he is. Just spoken about Mbeumo, who's gone up to 7.2 million now. Semenyo is probably the best sub 6 million midfielder in the game, I would suggest. That's quite annoying, actually. Mbeumo has literally gone up in price in the process between me doing the graphics and recording this video. So he is 7.2 million now. You have to trust me on that. Semenyo is probably the best sub 6 million midfielder in my mind in the game. He's got a couple of really nice fixtures coming up. And the Arsenal fixture, what would that be? Game week 8. The Arsenal fixture in game week 8 might be one you consider benching him for. And I've got a bench option for you in this team as well, if that was the case. And week on week, if you did want to bench one of these outfield players, I've always got a bench option for you as well. And then Morgan Rogers finally got some attacking returns in game week 5. Yeah, we all know how good he's been for Villa at the start of the season. And I just thought he's always going to get attacking returns. Quite how many he gets, I think, is still kind of a bit up in the air. But he's just looked so good. It's impossible for him to go through this season without getting some attacking returns. And I think even if he doesn't light the world up in terms of returns, you know, gets less than 10 goals, sort of 7 or 8 goals, 7 or 8 assists, something like that this season, at 5.1 million, he's still going to prove to be good value in my mind. And the next 3 fixtures for Aston Villa, I would say from an attacking perspective, look really good. Ipswich, Man United at home, Fulham away. I would suggest those are 3 fixtures where, Villa and he could conceivably get attacking returns. So 5 in midfield, no Mo Salah, Saka, Palmer, and Mbumo, Semenyo, Rodgers is who I've gone for in this draft. Right, up front then, I've gone at the moment for João Pedro and Haaland. Obviously, João Pedro was a bit of a doubt, of course, for game week 5. I think, whatever the issue was, should be fine for game week 6 and he'll be back in and ready to go. And the new Brighton manager, trying to get my words out there, basically said in his press conference ahead of game week 5 that João Pedro is kind of the key to the team that unlocks their attacking potential. He was just really bigging him up in his place in that Brighton 11. So for me, I think you can consider, when he's fit, João Pedro to be pretty much nailed on for Brighton right now based on what the manager said. I think you kind of have to take those words as truth. And then, of course, you can't go without him. Erling Haaland's in the team as well. Like I said, FPL Review has him underscoring Saka by basically over a point in game week 6. Fantasy Football Hub, the expected points model I'm using for this team and building this draft that you can see in front of you, has Haaland slightly above Saka. So, I would say the captaincy is quite close between the two. So yeah, João Pedro and Haaland, I think, are probably the 2 best strikers to go for. One that is omitted from this team that I do really like, but I couldn't squeeze in with the players that I've picked, is Solanke. I love the thought of what Solanke brings at 7% ownership currently in the game. I love the thought of picking a player that's a proven, tried and trusted Premier League goal scorer, right? Scored 19 goals for Bournemouth last season, off the mark in game week 5 for Tottenham. I love the thought of a player that's tried and trusted being low ownership because, yes, they're a differential, but it's not like you can't tell me that Solanke is a risky pick, right? Based on what he produced last season and how he's played for Spurs so far. I think he's gotten off to a decent start, even though he's only scored 1 goal. So I can't quite squeeze him in with the structure of the team that I have at the moment. But if you potentially want to downgrade one of these players, potentially you don't like Saka, for example, don't like Palmer, maybe you want to downgrade one of those players, bringing in Solanke could be a way to go as well. Now, so I just wanted to put a little summary together of the team, basically. On the bench, I've gone for Dan Bentley, 4 million goalkeeper, doesn't matter who you pick in my mind. Colwill, Chelsea have kept a couple of clean sheets in a row. Colwill seems to be starting every game for Chelsea at the moment. I think he's a pretty decent option at that price. You could go, of course, the team value is 99.8 million, as you can see there. Now, there's enough cash. If you wanted to get Colwill, get rid of Colwill and bring in Rico Lewis, that is something you could do. I've gone for Calvert-Lewin as kind of a rotational option in this team. I imagine he, week on week, would be able to rotate with the likes of Semenyo, Rodgers, João Pedro. I like the thought, particularly in FPL this season, where you can bank loads of transfers. I quite like the thought of having a relatively strong bench. So having Calvert-Lewin and Colwill as bench options, I think, is a good way to go. And I went for Van der Berg of Brentford as well as the 4 million defender. You might think differently. I think Greaves of Ipswich is a perfectly decent option as well. I just thought with those Brentford fixtures coming up, I think he's probably going to start for them. Not 100% sure, but with those fixtures coming up, I just wouldn't be worried about having to rely on him if I did have injury issues. So yeah, I just thought he'd be worth picking. Like I said, it's nice to have a strong bench with the amount of transfers that you can accumulate in this game now. But what it does mean is that week on week, you do end up with a little bit of a benching headache. The Fantasy Football Hub expected points suggest that João Pedro should play over Calvert-Lewin next week, with the information we've got so far in terms of players' fitness, etc. But I would say it's kind of up to you who you start in this team, to be honest, and it might be that game week 6 is a little bit of a benching headache. So yeah, sorry about that with this team. If you wanted to avoid that, you could, of course, potentially downgrade one player somewhere, upgrade another player elsewhere. Maybe you could take out Palmer, go for a really cheap midfield, like a 4.5 million midfielder or something, and then upgrade Calvert-Lewin to Solanke and then upgrade João Pedro. There are chops and changes you can make to this team if you're not quite agreeing with the players that I've gone for. But ultimately, I think, the kind of core structure of this team and the core players that I've picked is kind of where you should be going with a wildcard draft. So I've not showed it here, but if you have Haaland as your captain, this team is projected to get 68.2 expected points according to Fantasy Football Hub. If you want to sign up to Fantasy Football Hub, I get you 50% off. You can see your team in this kind of view, projected points for each player for the rest of the season basically, but for the next 3 game weeks on your screen when you pick your team. An AI rating, expected points figure, you can see it all on Fantasy Football Hub. This team gets a 95% AI rating. I also, just out of interest, wanted to see what the Fantasy Football Hub AI tool actually could build for me in terms of a wildcard draft. And this is what it came up with. 66.7 points for this team. It's gone, interestingly, for a Flecken and Areola goalkeeper double up. I'd probably suggest that you could just go for Flecken and a 4 million goalkeeper and be quite happy with Flecken. But yeah, just my opinion. Gabriel, Robertson, Saliba in defence. Saka, Eze, and Mbumo, Semenyo in midfield. Haaland, Wood, Isak up front with an interesting option there of Guardiola on the bench as well. I would potentially suggest you could downgrade Guardiola to a 4.5, maybe someone like Alex Moreno. Upgrade Trent, downgrade Areola, maybe upgrade Eze to a slightly more expensive midfielder if you wanted to. Maybe upgrade Wood to a slightly more expensive striker. You know, there are a few chops and changes I would personally make to this AI draft, but I just thought it'd be interesting for you to see what the Fantasy Football Hub AI tool had to say. Alright, and that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that. Just for reference, you won't see it if it's out of date or any of these players get injured. I've kind of taken a little bit of a risk recording this video on Sunday morning, so I'm going to go live directly after Game Week 6 rather than record this video. So I thought I'd get it in early and then pray that Saka, basically, who's the big feature of this video, doesn't get injured. So if that does happen, you won't see this video, but if it does, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave me a like rating. You can subscribe to the Goal to Goal channel, which should be just there on your screen. My shoulder's still hurting, so I can't really point that well. Let me know in the comments what you think of the draft, any changes you make. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in my next video.